own place. I'm so glad we asked for help.
The only thing that got me through those times was my wife, support of my community.
If you need help with your home energy bills, go to EnergyShareMT.com. Brought to you by Energy Share and this station.
Last May, Ten Spoon Winery partnered with the Historical Museum with Hello to Old Missoula, Missoula's History Through Art, an event where attendees voted on their favorite piece of art, which would become the next Ten Spoon wine label. Votes were counted, and Megan Odell's piece depicting the 1990s Roxy Theater fire was the winner. Now you can drink wine for history, as Ten Spoon is dedicating a portion from every bottle of Roxy Fire wine sold to the Historical Museum. Find it now at local retailers or call 406-549-8703.
Nuanez.
Hello, Montana. Conference legacies and what a win in the quarterfinals would mean for each Big Sky team that's there. Bo Baldwin expected to be the new Cal Poly head coach. What? And John Casper, our ESPN Roundtable, the Senior Associate Commissioner of the Big Sky Conference. Hi, boys and girls. How are you? Ryan Tootell, Colter Nuanez. Great to be along with you. Thanks for having us there, wherever you are, whatever you're up to. We appreciate that very much. Tootell Nuanez broadcasting, as always, from the Kurtz Polaris Studios. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, Highway 83 in Sealy, and online at kurtzpolaris.com. You can find us on the World Wide Web as well, 1029ESPN.com. You listen live on the Listen Live tab. It's called a stream, and it's available thanks to Opportunity Bank, your local bank, your opportunity. If you want to pick up your phone and call us, you can do that too. 329-1899. 329-1899, the phone number. All guests join us via the Rankage Brothers RV phone line. Let's take a look at what we got in the show today. We're going to open with the FCS quarterfinals and what each game means to the respective Big Sky Conference school that is in it, namely Montana, Montana State, and Weber State. What a loss and a win would mean for the program and where they are at right now and heading into next season and beyond. So we'll go through that. It is a Wednesday, so we got Wing It Wednesday for you. Yeah, that's right. We're going to send you over to the Desperado Sports Tavern, get the best wings in town. We'll do some trivia here in the first hour and the next hour as well. We will talk about the news, which was rumored and sort of confounding and has gained steam and appears to be a fact. In fact, certainly is a fact that Bo Baldwin is going to be taking over as the head coach at Cal Poly. Bo Baldwin, of course, the longtime outstanding head coach of Eastern Washington, and then went to Cal and has been the offensive coordinator at Cal for 2 seasons, right? He's been there?
2 seasons.
And
actually, this is his 3rd season because he left Eastern Washington 2016, 2017, 18, 19.
Okay, so 3 years at Cal as the OC, and now Cal Poly opens, and he will be taking that job in a bit of a head scratcher, I must say. Great for Cal Poly, presumably, but
there's actually a lot.
There's a lot to talk about, so we'll get to all of it. And also in the next hour, we'll do, again, a Wing It Wednesday, and also our ESPN Roundtable with John Casper. He's the Senior Associate Commissioner of the Big Sky Conference. He is essentially the guy, the number 2 to Tom Wistersill. And today, the Big Sky Conference has announced and unveiled the Big Sky Conference Hall of Fame with 14 inaugural members in it. And so we have a conversation with him about that, about year 2 in Boise for the Big Sky Conference tournament. He's in Boise right now preparing for that basketball tournament, and of course about the FCS playoffs as well. So all kinds of stuff to cover with John Casper from the Big Sky Conference. So we're happy to do that. There you go. That is our show outlook. It is presented by Shine Auto Detailing, online at shineautodetailing.net. Don't wait. Get your car cleaned and then get it protected. Shine Auto Detailing heading into the winter. Coulter, let's talk about this FCS playoff and the teams that are in it from the Big Sky Conference. And the sort of horse race, the jockeying for position that is these teams, not just now, but to place themselves and affirm themselves as the team, which they each want to be in the conference, the leader of the pack, as it were, that everybody else is chasing.
The hinge point that I want this conversation to be about is under the premise that in college football, you're either getting better or you're getting worse. There's no possible way to just be the same. Now, even if you're North Dakota State and you've been the top of the heap for a decade, you're either getting better or you're getting worse. And the scary part for the rest of the FCS is North Dakota State continues to get better. Trey Lance was named the Gary Rice Award winner today. They've never had a National Freshman of the Year. Now they got a guy that's an All-American caliber quarterback as a redshirt freshman. That's crazy. But I want to talk about, because we especially in Montana, the jobs are so high pressure. I mean, we saw a guy that won 70 games in Montana State get fired. We saw a guy that went 21-14 at Montana get fired. You have to win at a very high level. You also have to sell your vision. You have to then fulfill what you pitched and sold to the collective fan base. And you have to do a whole bunch of other stuff too, like being one of the most visible people in the state of Montana if you're a head coach. And also you have to navigate, negotiate, endure the rivalry, which is constant.
It's so interesting. Let's talk about the first part of that, Volker, because you said you have to sell your vision and then make that come to fruition. To this point, almost to the letter, Jeff Choate has brought that about him.
Absolutely.
Here's what's interesting to me about Bob Stitt. Bob Stitt needed to sell a vision and didn't have one. He didn't have a vision to sell. We're going to score a bunch of points. We're going to play. We're going to do the up-tempo thing. That's fine. That's not a vision, man. That's not like where this program's going to go. I don't recall one word about what the direction and the goals and the aspirations, or the expectations of the program were as a whole ever from him. And so he failed to do that at all. It didn't achieve or not achieve. There just wasn't one. And that, I think, is a big part. I mean, you're talking about he was 21-14, 1-2 in the Cat Grizz game, did go to a playoff game, did win a playoff game, did beat North Dakota State once, the first game, which, again, in retrospect, was actually perhaps not a good thing that ended up happening for him personally. But in any case, that's not the only reason, though. I mean, there's a feeling about who this guy is and what he was like and what he wasn't about, which was integrating into, being a quote-unquote a Montana guy and spending the time that you have to spend with, the money folks, the administrative folks, the fans, the media. Like, it was never there. So that's that side of it. It's interesting, though. Bobby Houck certainly has a vision for this program and an expectation, but he's never had to sell it because his hire, because of what he was as an established entity as a head coach the first time that he was at Montana, brought all of that stuff with it. It was just innate in what came with Bobby Houck as the hire of this football team, that he doesn't have to sit here and go, here's what we're going to be about. He just said, well, we already know what we're about. It's exactly what we were about the first time that I was here, And so it's sort of an interesting disanalogy that way, because how many times does it happen that a guy gets hired for a second time at a school? I mean, that's rare, man.
It's really rare.
So it's a unique circumstance that way. For Weber State, they're a team that was really good and then wasn't any good. And then when Jay Hill took over, he kind of built, and has really plateaued that team to a nationally prominent level. Are they 3-time now, either winning or sharing Big Sky
champions,
conference champions? And he, to me, kind of has the keys to the kingdom, at Weber State, where the pressure isn't what it is at Montana or Montana State. And while they have been good at times, they've also been bad at times. So to have a team that's in the quarterfinal of the playoffs is, I mean, that's outstanding. And he is going to be, he, from a job standpoint and all that, is I think not just fine, but in hugely good graces with everybody in the Weber Ogden community and Utah at large as far as it goes. Whether he's in his own good graces, I think he isn't. Like he wants and expects more out of his program, and he has an opportunity to get that on Friday night against Montana. But when you talk about these teams, Colton, we discussed briefly earlier that Bobby Houck, when he came here, he was adamant. The only thing that's different about the Big Sky Conference is that Montana's not on top. And even though that's just flatly not true, I mean, there's actually many other teams and schools that are involved in the Big Sky Conference that were not at the time that he was there. So just objectively, it is different, very different. But that said, if you get the impression that he really actually does believe this and is attempting to bring that out, and that Weber State was maybe the team that was circled to him and therefore to his team as the team that has been the place that we are supposed to be, that is our birthright or whatever, however he's selling it as Montana, like it's us and everybody else. They're the team that's been there, that's had what is rightfully ours. And they took it from him the first time around. This game is going to be an interesting one for all of those reasons as well.
Well, first we'll start with the Big Sky Conference has 4 more teams, like you said. But also, you've had all these teams rise up and at least win a share of at least one conference title since the league expanded in 2012. Every single team in the league, save Idaho State, has had a piece of the playoff pie, and you've had everybody from Cal Poly to Southern Utah to Eastern Washington, Weber State, UC Davis. They've all shared a piece of a conference title, besides who? Montana and Montana State. That in itself is crazy.
Crazy.
And
it's still true.
It's still true. Weber State, when Bobby Houck was last in the league, 2008, 2009, were the 2 greatest seasons in the history of Weber State football until Jay Hill came to Weber State. Those 2 years, Weber State, they shared the Big Sky title 2008 with Montana, and they made the playoffs as an at-large team 2009. Multiple NFL guys like Tim Toon and Cam Higgins. They were really good. Weber's invested so much more in football since then. They have an indoor practice facility. They have an academic center. They have a national recruiting budget. They're just trying harder in football, straight up. Yeah, and you could compare and contrast all this stuff. Like Portland State's probably arguably not as strong as they were with Bobby Houck the first time around. Eastern Washington, we'll see where they go from here, but they had a great run under Paul Wolf and Bo Baldwin. I don't know if Aaron Best he's not enough like those guys to keep the exact same identity of the program. But I think that the league has objectively grown, I think you could say. I don't know if it's actually better. I think when you talk about how far does your best team go in the playoffs, it's about the same. And not quite actually as good, because Eastern Washington made it to the semifinals a bunch, but only won the one national championship, only played in two national championship games. Bookended the decade, basically, 2010 and last year. But Montana was perennially in the national championship game. So right. I think there's a lot of ways to gauge whether the league's better, but I think you can objectively say the league has grown and has become more vast, diverse, and challenging. But let's talk about each one of these programs. First of all, I think that this is a pivotal moment for Weber State because Jay Hill he's not nearly as wordy, nearly as talkative as Jeff Choate, but he is very to the point about his vision too. And he said, we're going to lose early and we're going to incrementally build it. And they did. They went 2-10, then they had a winning record. Then they made the playoffs, and then they got a seed in the playoffs, and then they got the 2 seed in the playoffs, and now they have the 3 seed in the playoffs. But here we are in year 6. You are the 3-time reigning Big Sky champion. You have gotten buys in the first round of the playoffs back to back. You have been top 2 or 3 seeds. If you're the 2 seed, all you have to do is win the games that you are favored in to get to the Final Four. And I say all you have to do is not that easy. But to fulfill the expectation you have going into the playoffs, all you have to do is hold your seat. So I think this is a gigantic game for Weber State in the arc of their program because they lost so much from the last senior class. That senior class was amazing at Weber State. They need to break through and prove to people that they can break. You can't just keep getting top 4 seeds and not making it to the Final Four. You got to make it to the Final Four once to affirm your place truly among the national elite.
No question. And I mean, Jay Hill got his team better than what people expected and looked like they were going to beat James Madison in the playoffs and go to the semifinals in what would have been a major upset 2 years ago. Didn't happen. Kind of lost it at the end. A painful loss, but also, the run-of-the-mill Weber State fan, while you're always sad when your team loses or whatever, you go, I can't believe what a great year we had. And look at the run that we just put on the number 2 team in the nation.
Yep.
Last year, that was the year that you're supposed to be there. And they were the bigger dog that ended up going down to Maine. And again, in any individual year, it's funky to talk about it because in any game, in a playoff game, anything can happen. You got beat by that team on that day. Maybe you beat them the next 9 times you play them, but that one day, it was their day. And look, nobody was beating Maine the day that they beat Weber State. I mean, they were rolling. But that said, over the course of time, how often do we hear about Andy Reid, right? He's a Hall of Fame coach, one of the great coaches ever. Never won a Super. It's always like there. And I don't know that it's national championship or bust. I don't know that it ever could be when North Dakota State is doing what they're doing, but certainly making it to a national semifinal, progressing to yet another step in the process, in the ultimate goal of winning a championship in Frisco, is something that hasn't happened yet for Jay Hill. And if it was to not happen again for a third, year in a row, you start to wonder if it feels like there's a bit of a barrier there.
You just don't want it to enter the conversation because then it becomes a distraction. If Weber State loses Friday night, now the 2 narratives creep in that they can't win big games and that they're a regular season team that's not built for the playoffs. And when those sorts of things creep into your program, we're going to get into Montana State and their program because I think the evolution of the CAP program is the most fascinating in the Big Sky Conference because they won 3 straight league titles to start this decade. But they were bashing their heads into the wall because their ceiling was so thick. They were exactly what they were, and they were never going to beat Sam Houston State, North Dakota State, those teams.
Right.
And quite frankly, they couldn't beat the Grizz. Montana State's regular season reputation and success was better than the Grizz, and they still couldn't beat the Grizz, even when the Grizz were going through so much stuff.
Yeah.
And they did beat the Grizz 2010, 2012 during those Big Sky Championship years, but Rob Ash went 2-7 against them. That's why Rob Ash doesn't have a job. Straight up, period. Well, I want to get into the Montana State or the Montana part of this just because I want to parlay this with the Weber State.
Okay.
I think it's interesting to analyze it from this moment. I think there's 2 analysis when you talk about Montana. And part of it is because what you just said. Bobby Hauck set the level of expectation for himself by being here the first time and winning 80 out of 97 games.
Right.
So that is the elephant in the room at all times. The measuring stick, it's already there's no circumstance that goes into it. It is exactly what it is, and people will not be satisfied with the rehiring of Bobby Hauck until he gets back to that level. They could be optimistic about the incremental or seismic progress that they're making. They will not be satisfied until they're back at a nationally elite level. But I also think that when you look at just what he inherited, the mess that it was, when you analyze it just from this program, this new program, he is a second-year head coach. Take his name away from it, take the past away from it, and you'd say, well, this Grizz team's playing with house money. I mean, these guys, like Mick Delaney said on the ESPN Roundtable last week, 20 receivers on scholarship, 10 linemen on scholarship? Like, what are you doing? That is a disaster of a program, period. Doesn't matter what name's on the front of the jersey. So on that end, I think that Montana's playing with house money and that any more success is just awesome for the trajectory of their program and probably farther than they thought. But on the other side, it's national championship game or bust at Montana, and that's what Bobby Hauck is trying to make the expectations return to. And I think that's the most fascinating balance is those two things are sort of pulling on each other. You never want to be complacent and be satisfied with where you're at, but on the other hand, you do have to give yourself credit for what you've accomplished thus far.
I asked Bobby Hauck in the press conference on Monday, what's the ceiling of this team? And he said a couple words and then basically just got to, hopefully we win this week, and he's focused on Weber State. I have not yet heard Bobby Hauck say we expect to or our goal is or we want to win a national championship, except for in the context of The goals of this program are always these 4 things. We graduate, we win the Big Sky Conference, we win a national championship. I forget the 4th. There's 4, those 4 things. So he said it like that in that context, that the goals for this program are the same every single year, all the time. But when you talk about this team right now being in the quarterfinal, it still hasn't really been out there. Hey, we are going to Frisco. Our goal here is to go to Frisco. Our goal here is to win this week. Our goal here is, okay, and I get it. In virtue of that, you go to Frisco if that continues to happen. Okay, but it is different than, North Dakota State. Their goal isn't to beat Illinois State. Their goal is to take home a trophy from Frisco, Texas on January 11th. Pure and simple, period. Yes. And everybody can and does talk about it. And you don't even have to ask the question because it would be foolish to ask the question. That's to what level they are at.
It's actually crazy because they've actually skewed. If you have 5 or 6 peer teams, talk about the FBS, you have Ohio State and Alabama and LSU and Oregon and Utah and these teams. Every single one of those teams, even though Alabama and Clemson have dominated so much, can start on day 1 of the season and be like, we have national championship aspirations. That's what it was like in the 2000s and even in the 90s with Montana. Like in the 90s, for example, when it was Montana, Youngstown State, Georgia Southern, they all are open up the season. National championship. That's our baseline expectation. Now it's like, and we knock off North Dakota State.
Right.
Everybody else, James Madison maybe is the luckiest team in America because they have snuck in and won 1 national championship this decade. They have another one from the previous decade. So they got 2 in the midst of Montana's domination and North Dakota State's domination. And no one's like, oh man, every time James Madison doesn't win the national championship, that's a failure. Where that really was the narrative in Missoula last decade, and it was the narrative. It would be the narrative in Fargo. If North Dakota State was to lose, say, in the semifinals to Montana State, it would be cataclysmic. It would be unbelievable that had happened.
That's right.
And their fans would be freaking out.
Well, there's a lot of plane tickets that way would not be refunded. It's Tootell and Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. Coulter, let's talk about Montana State.
So let's play. I just cut up a piece of sound real quick.
Okay.
Jeff Choate was asked, did you expect to have the program hosting a quarterfinal game in year 4?
When you get a job, it's like getting a present. You open it up, and it's not exactly what you thought it was going to be. And that's kind of how I would describe this. Montana State had a nice run here, and you're thinking from the outside looking in, we've got a pretty good thing going. But there were some things that we needed to fix. Once I realized that, I didn't know how fast it was going to happen. I knew there was not going to be a quick fix. My failure, couldn't find that quarterback that we just plug in and go, and which can fix a lot of things. But what's ironic about it is I think this program is now built for the long haul because of it. I don't know why it happened that way. I think a lot of it had to do with personal discipline. Believe in what you're doing and don't deviate from the plan and don't listen to the outside noise.
Very interesting, and honest comments and true. And he takes that on himself. But also, what happens if you do get a quarterback that's plug and play? What happens if Tucker Rovig actually gets better? Well, he's certainly going to get better, but becomes what his, physical ceiling and gifts think that he could be. Who knows? Or if you just find that guy, maybe you just out-recruit what you got or whatever. But they are in a place, Coulter, where they first of all need to be, Montana State, where they should be. When you talk about going into this year and you look at the talent they have, both sides of the ball, both lines, all that, the running game, etc. So they're in a great spot. What I want to see, obviously, is how far can this team go this year? Because this is, to me, a quote-unquote high watermark for Montana State.
Yep.
But Jeff Choate also said there this program is now built for the long haul.
Yep.
I think there's truth in that. I also think you lose a lot here this year.
You do.
So I want to see, even with the return of Troy Anderson, Isaiah Fotsay, some really big-time types of players, I want to see what the next crop looks like, especially when you don't have what he does have this year, and that is a lot of guys that came with him from a Washington job that are elite types of physical specimen.
Sure.
And are you able to get that and find that and put it in? That said, you can't deny what's going on right here. They have rolled into a home quarterfinal game where they are favored to go to the semifinals and play at North Dakota State again in the national semifinal. That's big time. Period. End of story.
6 fifth-year seniors on this team that are all from Montana that signed with Rob Ash. I did profiles on all 6 of them, and I asked every single one of them, what did you think when Jeff Choate was hired? Because they're coming off a redshirt year.
That's right.
And this was before they got to know this guy or anything. But they all, to the man, said, we could see what was going on in the program, and it wasn't for us. This guy walked in, and it was. And it wasn't for everybody else. Those guys signed with a class.
That's why they're still there.
Those
and
guys
the
signed
other
with
guys
a class of 31, and only 6 of them made it. Think of the attrition in that class.
Yeah.
And Mitch Brott, he said, I knew right away when Choate walked in a room, there was a lot of people on this team that weren't going to make it just because at that point the standard had fully slipped. People were getting away with a lot of things that weren't part of a team effort. People straight up weren't trying anymore. You could tell that Choate was not going to put up with that. And now he's built this program into a succeeding program. His culture is the thing that makes us go. And that's exactly Montana State, Rob Ash.
And that's why you can make a statement like we're built for the long haul.
Exactly.
Because it's a standard that isn't cutting corners, even if you don't have Bryce Stirk on the edge. Somebody is going to go 100%, whoever it is that's there.
Rob Ash was the king of September and October.
Mm-hmm.
Jeff Choate has proven to be the king of November. Now he's getting December games, so we'll see how he performs. But I mean, they have won 13 out of their last 14 games of the month of November.
Mm-hmm.
Impressive. So we'll see what if the next prophecy now that they're built for the long haul. We'll see, because you're right. You're likely not going to get another Bryce Stirk. You're not going to get the 6'5", 260-pound former state champion hurdler who's just going to come in, plug and play, and get 30 sacks in 2 years. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
But they do have a bunch of other guys that they've really developed that are really talented guys. I mean, Chase Benson will be a really good D lineman.
Braden Conkle wasn't that guy, by the way.
Exactly.
And comes in and is, as central to what they do in every element, particularly the mentality standpoint of it. And he's a homegrown kid who wanted to go to MSU and play for Jeff Choate, and so you get that too.
I think it was also very telling that Choate, he straight up admitted his deficiencies with quarterback and how much that's hindered. But don't make no mistake, Rob Ash is an excellent in-game coach. And Rob Ash went something like 38-1 against all the teams in the Big Sky Conference that weren't Montana, Eastern Washington, and Northern Arizona. I mean, he went 9-0 against Saxton, 9-0 against Portland State. He's never losing to anybody but the premier schools. The problem was
never beaten them.
He went 2-7 against Eastern and 2-7 against Montana. I mean, he was 4-14 against those two schools, and I mean, do the subtraction, 66-20 against the whole rest of his career. Right. But then so often they lost in the playoffs too, and I think that's where you have to adjust your expectations as a program as a whole. If you're just satisfied with competing for the Big Sky every once in a while and going to the playoffs more often than not, and never making it past the quarters, Rob Ash is probably your guy. If you want to find the guy to get you to the top.
You got it.
Who knows if it's Choate or not, but Ash wasn't.
Yeah.
He's not going to help you summit the mountain.
Tootell Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. It's a good conversation. We'll circle back to it in various forms and various threads. But right now, we want you to give us a call. 329-189. 329-1899. We got a basket of wings for you, maybe even a shirt from the Desperado Sports Tavern, the best wings in the city of Missoula, and 3 trivia questions there about the FCS playoffs, okay? A little bit of Big Sky in there too, but FCS playoff trivia coming at you right after this. 329-1899, a Wing It Wednesday next.
Hi there. It's Les Schwab Tire. Well, more like Les Schwab alignment, brakes, shocks, wheels, and tires. Now, some tire places don't offer. They only sell tires. And we're not sure how they sleep with it, because all those services affect things like sleeping and stopping. That's why we offer more tires to help keep you safe. Stop by or book an appointment at LesSchwab.com. Les Schwab Tire, doing the right thing. 1950.
On Russell, across from the fairground.
There's a saying, opportunity never knocks twice. When you're ready to take advantage of your next opportunity, look to your local bank. Opportunity Bank of Montana. Opportunity Bank offers options for mortgage loans, small business loans, equipment financing, agriculture, and more. Our experienced team can provide solutions to help you welcome your next big opportunity. There's nothing like the feeling of progress. So let's get started today. Come see us at your local Opportunity Bank of Montana. OpportunityBank.com, member FDIC, equal housing lender.
Hey, it's Coulter, and I'm here with Catherine from The Advocates. If you've been in a car accident or need help dealing with the insurance companies, you should give The Advocates a call. They can tell you if you have a case right over the phone.
That's right. It doesn't cost anything to call, and we'd be happy to talk to you and assess your situation. You don't want to have to deal with contacting the insurance companies and setting up a claim. We can do that for you. We take the hassle out of the process, so you can just focus on getting better.
There you go, folks. If you've been injured in an accident, give The Advocates a call. 406-640-4444 or online at MontanaAdvocates.com. You deserve The Advocates.
Local Missoulian Hokato Eastman is in urgent need of a new automated wheelchair. His current chair is very old, causing life-threatening pressure sores. Hokato's green chair would allow him to be more independent and to stand for the first time in 20 years. Please help Hokato gain dignity, health, and quality of life. We hope that you sincerely consider giving money to this worthy and essential life-saving cause. Stop by the Hope Center or find his GoFundMe campaign at thehopecenter.us/wheelchair to donate. Let's get Hokato this chair, Montana.
Hey there, Coulter Nuanez from your favorite daily sports talk show, Tootell Nuanez. I'm here with Tom from Aspen Sound. Tom, last winter I got a sweet car starter. It's something I think everybody needs.
You know, Coulter, I couldn't agree more, and my wife sure thinks so too. We've got a lot of sweet deals. We actually have it capable now where you can start it from your phone from anywhere you'd like. We have two-way remotes that'll confirm to you the vehicle started all the way down to our basic package starting at just $299 installed. Come on in and check us out.
Good afternoon, Ryan Tootell, Coulter Nuanez. Here's some sports news for you. College football has been stealing a spotlight in the state of Montana with a mid-December appearance for the first time in years, but the winter sports, prep sports, just got on their way this week. Girls and boys basketball as well as wrestling began over the weekend and this week.
In Class AA boys hoops, reigning Montana Gatorade Player of the Year, Raleigh Wooster, will try to help Missoula Hellgate avenge last season's overtime loss in the state title game at the buzzer to Bozeman. And in Class AA girls, Helena High will try to replace two-time Gatorade Player of the Year Jamie Pickens, who's now with the Lady Grizz. The Bengals are trying for their fourth straight Class AA title. They are one of only 3 schools ever to three-peat, but no AA program has ever won 4 in a row. Missoula Hellgate, an upstart team a year ago with plenty of youth returning, should also be in the mix after finishing 3rd last season.
A Class A girls hoops, Havre is gunning for its 3rd straight titles and its 4th since 2014. The Blue Ponies are led by Lady Grizz commit Kendall Keller. In Class B boys, Missoula Loyola lost in the state title game last year, but returns a talented roster. And in Class C boys, Manhattan Christian took down R. Lee for the first time in 3 years as the 2 squads played for the 3 consecutive state championships.
Finally, wrestling, the defending champions are Flathead AA, Sydney in A, Colstrip in B, and Circle in Class C.
This ESPN Missoula Sports Center is brought to you by Aspen Sound.
It's time for a Wing It Wednesday, 329-1899, the phone number. It's Tootell and Nuanez. We're broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, Highway 83 in Sealy, online at kurtzpolaris.com. You can find us on all the social medias. If you're looking for the station, what we do here, giveaways from time to time and so forth on Instagram or Twitter at 1029 ESPN is the handle, and at Gus Tootell and at Skyline Sports MT on Twitter if you're looking for all the rest of that stuff. 329-1899, the phone number, 329-1899. Got 3 trivia questions for you, so if you want to get some wings to the Desperado, feel free to give us a shout. We can go through some of that stuff. Coulter, when we were talking about Weber and where they're at and where they haven't gotten to yet. And it's only really been 2 seasons of playoff runs, and one was better than expected, and then the last year not as much. But nonetheless, a program that has been ranked nationally elite. They're the number 3 team in the country coming into this playoff and have not, as of yet, advanced past this round under Jay Hill, past the national quarterfinal. It reminds me in a very small sense, of a program like Villanova or Virginia in men's basketball, where Villanova always had the top 2 or 3 seed, maybe even a number 1 overall seed, bounced in the second round of the tournament. Can't get it done. What's going to happen here? And then they win the whole thing. Virginia, the same thing, and then they go and win the whole thing. And I just think it's a matter of time before Jay Hill gets the program, maybe not to a national championship, but past this point, right?
See, this is why I think that Saturday is such a pivotal game for Weber State, because Jay Hill's an excellent recruiter. He is very steadfast in his own personal way of being, which I think helps you have a steady program. Jay Hill's not, there's so many coaches that are volatile, and that's why they're successful in a lot of ways. But also, I mean, Ed Orgeron has LSU as the number 1 team in the country right now. But do you have any faith that he'll be able to sustain that? I mean, it could go up and down. They could go from number 1 to 9th in the SEC and back up, and he might ride the roller coaster forever because it's just kind of his personality. I don't think that Weber State will, if Jay Hill stays there for 10 more years, they'll never be a dumpster. They'll have a winning record always, and they'll be in the playoff mix most of the time, and they'll be in the Big Sky Conference title contention more often than not. But you wonder, you don't want, Jay Hill isn't Rob Ash, but you don't ever want to, if you're at a school with very, very high expectations, or if you're like Jay Hill and you're at a school where you have reset the expectations because of your own success, you don't ever want to be labeled as that coach who can't get you through the ceiling.
Yeah, I know, but I guess I'd also, it's way too early to me to even talk about that, because if Weber State...
Not to me, when Weber State lost 31-28 to James Madison, that year they beat Western Illinois 21-19 in the playoffs. Then they got a rematch with Southern Utah, who had beat them soundly during the regular season. They beat their in-state rival on the road, but it was an in-state game in Cedar City, which is not like a crazy, intimidating place to play. Good win, certainly. But that year, it wasn't like this giant upset. They beat the 7th-seeded Thunderbirds, who were not very much better than them, or in a lot of people would say not better than them.
Yeah.
But then the moment that they took James Madison down to the wire, they finished the season as number 5 in the poll. They've never delineated from that. And all I'm getting at is that they're good, but they're not as good as they were. Personnel-wise, their players, they're going to be, again, they're in the cycle of rebuilding because they only have 4 senior starters. Well, but they don't have guys like McKay Murphy and LeGrand Toye right now. And so what I'm saying is they've just been able to hold serve with the ranking that they've had, which is great. But I'm just saying that there has to be a point where you start to question, are these guys actual national championship contenders, or are they just holding the spot in the polls and capitalizing on it when the time is right, but not being able to capitalize on it in the biggest game?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I think if you're in the national quarterfinal, you have, to an extent, capitalized. And if Jay Hill rolls into the postseason as the 3rd seed in the country on a, between the, let's say as a seeded team, he rolls into the playoffs with a bye regularly. Yes, you want to have postseason success. Yes, you need that, and especially if you're a perennial, participant in that thing, you got to win some games, and yeah, you got to get to a national semifinal at least. But also, there's no reason to sit here and question whether something that he's doing isn't getting you there. Until it starts to slip, if it does.
That's a very good point, because, first of all, Jay Hill's the greatest coach in Weber State history. Period. He's only been there 6 years. He's the greatest coach in Weber State history. Period. They have only made the playoffs twice in the history of their football program. They made them 4 years in a row.
Right.
He's the greatest coach in program history. It's not you don't start to question Jay Hill. You start to question what's the potential of the program right now.
Exactly.
It's just like with Montana State. We talked about, is Brian Fish the right guy or not? I don't know, but before Danny Sprinkle got hired, and right now Danny Sprinkle looks like a dynamite hire. We'll see how it all plays out. He's been doing excellent, though, so far in its first non-conference.
Early returns, very good.
Very good. But, like I said all along, is Brian Fish the perfect fit at Montana State? Likely no. But was all of the struggles and the ceiling that Montana State was banging their heads against Brian Fish's fault? Absolutely not. Montana State has gone 15-15 for 15 years straight. That's what they are. That's what they do. Right. The only year they weren't 15-15 was when they bottomed it out in Fish's first year and won 7 games. But there's been no outlier where they just go win 19 or 20 games. None. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes then you have to ask yourself, what's the problem with the program? It's the program. It's not the coach. And sometimes the coach can change the program. But I agree with you. If Weber State gets to the point where they're hitting their head on this quarterfinal ceiling for 5 years in a row, then you have to question, well, what is the expectation? What is the potential?
That's right. And here's the other part of that. It's up to you at your own program, but it's not up to you at the other 12 institutions that are playing football in the Big Sky Conference. And if Montana and Montana State do what it appears that they are doing, which is start to meet some of the potential that the institutions have for the sport of football, everybody else is getting worse. Period.
Let's talk about one. I want to bring this hypothetical to you. We talk about all the reasons why the Montana schools should be good. They have excellent facilities. They're in great college towns. They have fan bases. I mean, being the biggest show in town gives them a gigantic advantage. And as Missoula and Bozeman continue to grow, those things are going to continue to manifest themselves and continue to be huge advantages. So the expectations should be high. I was really thinking about this after we did the Gatorade Player of the Year segment last week, when Tommy Mlott won Gatorade Player of the Year, and we went through what the last 6 Gatorade Player of the Years have done after. I've been really thinking about just the talent in Montana or lack thereof. There's still talent in Montana, but for so long, you could get such elite dudes in Montana, especially on the line. And you don't see that anymore. You still see some great athletes. Certainly. There's great athletes in the state of Montana. There always will be. There'll always be great athletes everywhere. But there's still a certain work ethic and toughness that comes with Montana kids, especially kids from, the non-college towns like Helena and Butte, even Billings. But, I haven't seen a guy like Thatcher Slay in Montana for so long. If those Montana lines on the early 2000s national championship teams and Bobby Houck's lines, those guys were straight NFL caliber and quality, but they were also all from Montana. And I just wonder if that's one of the things that's not being taken into account. Will the Grizz ever get back to where they once were? Well, is Dave Dickinson ever going to grow up in Great Falls again? You just never know.
Right.
Like some of the great players that Bobby Houck ever had, Chase Reynolds and Mark Mariani and those guys that developed from walk-ons into NFL guys, those are tremendous stories, and they deserve all the credit in the world. But also, Coach Houck got pretty darn lucky having Colin Dow, an NFL draft pick, just happened to be Billings Senior kid.
Yeah.
Lex Hilliard, I see Lex Hilliard is a once-in-a-lifetime guy. A 6'1", 230-pound state champion sprinter running back in Kalispell, Montana, he looks like an NFL guy when we were freshmen in high school. That is just luck that guy falls in your lap.
No doubt. I think there's an element of that. I do think that even though Lex Hilliard maybe ain't coming around again, there's always going to be, talking about the Gatorade Player of the Year, it is representative of a lot of things. Certainly being very good at your sport, being a great football player is one of those things. It's not everything, and I'm not going to affix this kid as the best football player that there is, or certainly the best prospect, much like the Heisman. When the Heisman goes to the best college football player in the country, rarely is that guy the number 1 NFL pick. A lot of times he's not even in the first round of NFL picks. And so I think there's an element of that where you can be great at the high school level and not necessarily be the just plug and play number 1 guy, playing Division I college football too. Sure,
but it's so much far beyond that. Like I think of the
representative.
I think of the CMR team when I was a sophomore in high school, the 2003 CMR team. Justin Hartman was going to Washington to play tight end. Yes. Brady Leaf is going to Oregon to play quarterback. Royce Fulp is going to, I think he ended up at Colorado State. He's a Mountain West guy. Brian Bagley has an offer from Oregon, but then instead he ends up tearing his knee, but ends up at Montana. Austin Mullins, Montana. Jeff Hansen, a 4-year starter at Montana State. You have 10 D1 dudes, 4 of which that are going to the Power 5 on one high school team. You don't see that in Montana.
Yeah. It's Tootell Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio.
Those guys won the state championship.
We'll come, shocker. We'll come back to that at another time. But, Coulter, this is a surprise to you and me both. Bo Baldwin going to Cal Poly. How'd that happen? We'll discuss it. And what does this mean for Cal Poly and for the Big Sky Conference? Back.
Looking for the perfect Christmas gift? It's spicy. 'Tis the season for seasoning with gift packs from Alpine Tech. 4 spice pack includes 4 Big Mountain flavors for just $19.99. Go to alpinetouch.com right now for gifts sure to keep mouths watering year round. If you plug in the code ESPN at checkout, you'll get a free bag of Alpine Touch sunflower seeds. From gift packs to gift cards to the Grand Slam package, Alpine Touch makes the perfect gift for anyone on your list. Go to alpinetouch.com right now to order Alpine Touch, Montana's special spice.
Not all gift cards are created equal. The Montana Club gift card comes with more handcrafted breakfast, lunch, and dinner favorites than any other local card. Home-style breakfasts, perfectly grilled Angus steaks, piled high sandwiches, expertly mixed cocktails, local craft beers, and much, much more. This year, give Montana made. Buy in-store or at montanaclub.com. Give $100 in gift cards and get a $10 gift card free. It's easy. Happy holidays from everyone at your Montana Club.
It's a rite of passage at First Bank. Explore the great options for your young adult with a visit to Farmer State Bank online at farmersebank.com or in person at any of our 9 locations in western Montana. Our checking and savings accounts are designed to fit any lifestyle and budget with the flexibility, innovations, and security today's consumers demand. Start out right with Farmer State Bank or Montana Banks in 1907.
In Western Montana, we know shopping local matters. And you may think you'd pay more for the quality and customer service that comes with it, but not at Selway Armory. Selway Armory is locally owned with knowledgeable specialists that can answer your questions. In addition to the expertise, though, Selway Armory also has a bigger selection and lower prices than the box store. When you're in the market for firearms and accessories, save money with experts at Selway Armory. Selway Armory, 2825 Stockyard Road, Unit E6, and online at selwayarmory.com.
The Hip Holiday Market is back, celebrating its 11th year. Support Lowell students and teachers while shopping for great holiday gifts from over 50 local artists at Lowell Elementary. Saturday, December 14th from 10 till 4. Enjoy live music, tasty treats from their renowned bake sale, the Big Sky Grub Truck, prize drawing, a visit from Santa, and all kinds of holiday cheer. It's the 11th annual Hip Holiday Market on 14th from 10 till 4 at Lowell Elementary, 1215 Phillips Street. The Hip Holiday Market is back.
Registration for Kiwanis basketball is open now through December 18th. Kiwanis basketball gives middle school boys and girls an opportunity to compete on the basketball court in an environment that is fun and promotes good sportsmanship. It is a free program that is supported through the fundraising efforts of the Kiwanis Club of Missoula. Visit MissoulaKiwanis.com for info and to register.
What once was old is now new. Tootell Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. Broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, Highway 83. Daily online at kurtzpolaris.com. Typewriters, rotary phones, and Bo Baldwin. Coulter. Not quite. Bo Baldwin was the head coach at Eastern Washington for how long?
9 seasons.
And in those 9 seasons, Eastern Washington went to how many playoffs?
They went to the FCS playoffs. They won 5 Big Sky championships. They went to the Final Four of the FCS playoffs 4 times, and they won the 2010 national.
The only team other than NDSU and then the one by James Madison to win a national championship was Bill Baldwin and his Eastern Washington Eagles in 2010 in this decade.
I mean, let's just say it completely how it. The only
6 times in the playoffs in those 9 years.
There's only been 5 national championships ever won by Big Sky Conference schools. Bo Baldwin led Eastern Washington in one of those.
Mm-hmm. So he gets an opportunity to go be in a Power 5 school at Cal, be the offensive coordinator at Cal. Cal had a good year this year. They were top 25 team for several weeks in there. I don't know how it all finished up for them. Kind of lost a little bit at the end. But they're in the Red Box Bowl. Excellent. Let me just bring up my bull sheet here. Love the Red Box Bowl. How long before Red Box will be going away following Blockbuster Video on the way out of there?
Oh, what a barn burner. Cal versus Illinois. This is what I'm talking about, the garbage that is the bowl for racing.
Bro, don't even get me started on this. Cal, Illinois, dude.
You know what I'd rather watch? I'd rather watch Evan Weaver do individual workouts than watch that game.
December 30th in Santa Clara, probably at Illinois Stadium, or Illinois Levi Stadium. I say we set the date, my man. Monday, December 30th. Take the day off. Get over there. Oh, it'd be great. Anyhow, he leaves Cal now, and I don't know if he's going to coach in the Red Box Bowl or not. It would be certainly a nice feather in the cap to have that Red Box Bowl experience. But Bo Baldwin leaving the Power 5 to go be a head coach again in the Big Sky Conference, and not just in the Big Sky Conference, at Cal Poly. Now, I don't know a ton about everything, okay? But I feel like I could say with some level of confidence there is a different requirement for entry into Cal Poly than there is to Eastern Washington from an academic standpoint.
No question.
And sometimes that can influence the players that you're able to actually get to go to school and play football for your football team. In fact, so much so that Cal Poly has been a triple option running football team a la Air Force Academy for as long as I can remember, certainly the entirety of Tim Walsh's career.
And the entirety of Rich Ellerson before that.
So this one to me, man, is a stunner. I don't know what to think about this. Now, he's been at Cal for 3 seasons, Bo Baldwin has. He has familiarity with the area. Obviously, the Bay and Cal, and then San Luis Obispo. Not that terribly far away, and you got to lay the high school landscape and all of that. But what do you think is going on here?
Well, I think that he was probably feeling pressure at Cal. Else I don't know why you'd leave a $600,000 a year job. He's going to get paid probably 1/4 of that at Cal Poly. Probably base salary about $150 at Cal Poly. I think he probably wanted to see his way out. Either that, or he just really, really, really wants to be a head coach again, and he thought that the opportunity was golden. I think that there's 2 sides to this that I think are very interesting. On one hand, you'd say if Bo Baldwin can recruit to Cheney, Washington, windy, flat, in the middle of a field, 10,000 residents, kids are hanging out the Safeway for fun, Cheney, Washington, then he'll be able to recruit to the beaches and vineyards and breweries and all the wonderfulness that is San Luis Obispo, California. Also, Bo Baldwin's a relatively young guy. He's got a relatively young family. So maybe it's just a change of scenery.
Quality of life deal.
Living in the Bay, overwhelming. Now you can go live in San Luis Obispo and run the show. And that job's only been open once this whole century. So, maybe he's been dreaming about it his whole life, but he is a Northwestern guy. But on the other side of this, you'd say, well, Bo Baldwin recruited guys like Tywan Jones, who was a 4th-round draft pick in the NFL, and ridiculously talented guy. And Tywan Jones had to take a Prop 48 when he first got to Eastern Washington. He was a non-qualifier at almost every school in the country. He's only a partial qualifier at Eastern Washington. So you can recruit a guy as talented as Tywan Jones and get him to go to Cheney. But you can get him in Cheney. You can't get him in Cal Poly.
No.
So what kind of recruiter are you? I also think that Bo Baldwin's, he's known for his offensive mind, right? Offensive guy who's scoring points and coaching quarterbacks. I think specifically his ability to mentor quarterbacks and cultivate confidence within quarterbacks is elite. I think that's his best coaching trait. As far as the offense that they run, it's the Dennis Erickson single back just out of the spread. They just press the perimeter a lot more, but it's such similar concepts to what Erickson was running in Idaho. Well, Baldwin said that. I mean, that's where he got it. And so I guess then the production of the offense comes from not necessarily the genius behind the scheme, but the talent of the guy. When Vernon Adams is thrown to Cooper Kupp and Kendrick Bourne, you've got a pretty good chance to be good.
Yeah. Yes, you do.
Like, I'm not really sure how good of an actual true coach Coach Baldwin is. And again, you have to give him all the credit in the world because he was the head coach. So he was the one making the final decisions in recruiting. When you just straight up have better players than everybody else, and again, he deserves credit for recruiting those guys. I'm just not sure if they're going to be able to recruit on the same level at Cal Poly. But I think that's probably the intrigue of the job, though. They've been stuck in this triple option mindset, and it's helped them tread water and never be horrifically bad, except for they have been horrifically bad the last couple of years. But here nor there, I think that it's just like at Sac State. If you can get the right guy in place, it's a sleeping giant just because of all the kids you have at your disposal. The recruiting hotbed that is California.
I mean, the recruiting hotbed and all that, all the kids that you can get. But I mean, again, the ceiling for football is so very much lower at Cal Poly than it is at Eastern Washington.
Oh,
I mean,
absolutely.
Just is. And so even if you're meeting it, even exceeding expectations and meeting potential for Cal Poly, I mean, if you make it to the playoffs, it's a monstrous success.
Sure.
And is that satisfying enough? Like, can you, for a guy who is a national championship winning coach at the FCS, are you able, or do you have to, and can you adjust what your gauge and barometer of success is for the institution that you are now the head coach at? And raising the expectation is always part of what being a coach is, and trying to figure out a way to be better than what you've been in the past is. And I think he can do that, but being better than what they've been and being good in relationship to, consistently at the top of the Big Sky Conference and heading in with a seed into the national playoff, I don't, that just doesn't seem flatly possible at Cal Poly.
Well, and the last point worth making, because I know we got to get out, is that one of the trickiest parts about being an FCS head coach is figuring out how to have your full roster filled, every spot on your 104-man filled, but also be using every dollar in your scholarship allotment, be using all 63 scholarships spread across 85 guys. How do you get 85 different guys on scholarship? Who are you going to give a third? Who are you going to give a half? How do you navigate that whole thing?
Yeah.
But Montana and Montana State have had so much success by filling those spots with in-state guys, and those guys then being diamonds in the rough that then bloom. I think that Eastern Washington has the single greatest recruiting advantage of any school in the entire FCS, because you have a state of Washington that's basically an outpost compared to the rest of the country. Very few schools are going to Washington to recruit. You only have Washington and Washington State. So the preferred walk-on and the one-third scholarship guys you're getting, they're not from an 8-man football program.
Right.
They're from Ballard and Garfield and in the city where they're playing real football. And those kids, maybe they don't have the developmental potential of somebody that comes from 8-man in, but they are so much more ready to roll. I mean, you can get all sorts of, like, look at Eastern Washington's defensive backfield. These guys have all just been partial scholarship guys from the South Tacoma area who then earned their way into being all Big Sky guys. The recruiting grounds are even more fertile when you're talking about an FCS program being able to recruit there.
It's Tootell Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. Hour number 1 in the books. Give us a call, 329-1899. We'll do a Wing It Wednesday with you. 329-1899. You want wings to the Desperado Sports Tavern, the best wings in the city of Missoula? Well, answer a couple of quick trivia questions, and you'll be elbow deep in sauce before you know it. 329-1899. We'll do that right after this. Hey, December is winter prep month at Shine Auto Detailing. The road salts and sands wreak havoc on the paint and finish of your ride. Protect your car or truck from the harsh winter elements by having a premium exterior detail, which includes a ceramic coating final finish from Shine Auto Detailing. When spring comes around, simply drive through the car wash. It'll look like it's been freshly waxed. And if you care about your ride, protect it from the winter. This week, save $50. Call to schedule or search Auto Detailing in Missoula and pick the one with over 100 5-star reviews online. shineautodetailing.net.
No matter how far you may go, there's always one just down the road. Down pump, ooh, pump it up, pump it up.
Corona and High Country Jerky sound so good. I think I'll stop by Town Pump on my way home and grab me a 12-pack of Corona for only $14.99 and some High Country Jerky for $7.99. It's always quick and easy, and there's a Town Pump right down the road.
Town Pump, right down the road. Pump it up, oh yeah.
This is Mike Nugent with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. Berkshire Hathaway provides Western Montana with full-time real estate professionals for you whenever you need us. Our reputation as the state's most knowledgeable and available real estate group has helped build unmatched trust in Garden City and statewide. If you have been thinking of making a real estate move in the short or long term, give me a call. No pressure, no expectations. Just professional opinions and service at whatever pace you are comfortable. Give me, Mike Nugent, a call today, 531-1802. And remember, every question is good to ask.
The biggest season in sports is shifting into overdrive, and the Desperado Sports Tavern has the fuel you need to make it to the finish line. By now, you've heard that the Despo serves the best wings around, but did you know they have a full menu with burgers, nachos, chicken strips, sandwiches, cheese sticks, and even steaks? Fill your tank, then wash it down with an ice-cold beverage or two. Keep your head in the game with 32 HD TVs and room for the whole crew. The Desperado Sports Tavern on South Russell across from the Y.
Last May, Spoon Winery partnered with the Historical Museum with Hello to Old Missoula, Missoula's History Through Art, an event where attendees voted on their favorite piece of art, which would become the next 10 Spoon wine label. Votes are counted, and Megan Odell's piece depicted in the 1990s Roxy Theater fire was the winner. Now you can drink wine for history, as 10 Spoon is dedicating a portion from every bottle of Roxy Fire wine sold to the Historical Museum. Find it now at local retailers or call 406-549-8703. Americans waste 3.8 million gallons of fuel idling every single day. Idling for more than 10 seconds actually uses more fuel and produces more emissions than stopping and restarting. The next time you're stopped for more than 10 seconds at the train, getting coffee, or picking your child up from school, please turn your vehicle off.
Have you been hurt or disabled? Are you missing time from work? Not sure what to do? I'm attorney Chris Helmer, Clark Fork Law. Our team specializes in worker compensation, personal injury, and Social Security disability. We fight for the benefits of you. Call Clark Fork Law 728-0168 for a free consultation, or visit clarkforklaw.com. Again, 728-0168.
Western Montana, KKVU HD3 Stevensville, and 102.9 FM on K275BS Missoula.
Good afternoon, Ryan Tootell, Colton Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Sports Center. With college football stealing the spotlight with a mid-December appearance in Montana for the first time in years, the winter prep sports season still got on their way this week. Girls and boys basketball started last weekend, while wrestling began earlier this week. In Class AA boys hoops, reigning Montana Gatorade Player of the Year Raleigh Wooster will try to help Missoula Hellgate avenge last year's overtime loss to Bozeman on a buzzer beater in the state title game. And in the Class AA girls, Helena High will try to replace two-time Gatorade Player of the Year Jamie Pickens, who is now with the Lady Grizz. The Bengals are trying for their fourth straight Class AA title. They are one of three schools to ever have a three-peat, but no AA program has ever had four in a row. Missoula Hellgate, an upstart team a year ago with plenty of youth, should also be in the mix after finishing third last season.
In Class A hoops, on the girls' side, Havre's gunning for its third straight title and its fourth since 2014. Blue Ponies are led by Lady Grizz commit Kendall Keller. In Class B boys, Missoula Loyola lost in the state title game last year, but returns a talented roster. And in Class C boys, Manhattan Christian took down RLE for the first time in 3 years as the two squads play for 3 consecutive state championships.
In wrestling, the defending champions are Flathead in Class AA, Sydney in A. In B, it's Colstrip, and Class C, Circle.
Fork Law.
time to do a little trivia, a little Wing It Wednesday. Tootell Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio, broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, Highway 83 in Sealy, online at kurtzpolaris.com. If you missed anything in the first hour, check it out on the podcast. Podcast available wherever you get your podcasts. It's there, thanks to the Wingate by Wyndham Hotel. And don't forget, here in about 15 minutes or so, we'll be joined by the Senior Associate Commissioner of the Big Sky Conference, John Casper, part of our ESPN Roundtable. All guests, by the way, join us via the Rankage Brothers RV phone line. We go to the phone now, and we welcome in Andrew to the show. Andrew, how are you?
Doing well. How are you?
Doing very well myself. Thanks, Andrew. Are you in? Where are you at, Andrew? You in Missoula? You driving around town? What's going on?
I am in. I'm at work right now. Actually, I'm running a piece of equipment, so I got you on Bluetooth.
Oh, outstanding. This is what I love. Double dipping where you're going to get some free wings, you hope, and also working away. What kind of equipment you on?
I'm in a loader.
Excellent. Well, best of luck to you in the loading. I have no doubt that this will not take away any of your focus from that job there that you got going on. Here's the deal. We got 3 questions for you. If you get 2 of them, you got yourself a basket of wings to the Desperado. If you get all 3, you're going to get a shirt as well. If you need any help on one of these, I am your lifeline, okay?
All right.
Boy, some chicken wings would really hit the spot. Tummy likey. Tummy want wingy.
Let me tell you what. Coulter is your lifeline, okay? I got my questions here for you.
I was going to just wing it on a wing it.
Well, why would you do that when I'm all prepared, like always? You know, I'm a good boy.
Gosh.
I'm a good boy.
Right,
Somebody tell my boss I was ready to go. All right, here we go. FCS playoff questions for you, since we are in the FCS playoffs here, Andrew. Question number 1. The FCS playoffs has expanded a number of times over the course of its existence, most recently to 24 teams. What year did the FCS playoff expand to 24 teams?
All right, I'm going lifeline already.
Okay.
Lifeline.
Man, and I don't truly confidently know the answer.
This makes me so happy. Now you know how I feel every time.
It was. I know it had expanded to 20 teams.
That's right.
The last 2 times.
It was at 16, and then it was at 20.
Because when Montana State was the number 1 team in the country and they lost to Montana last game of the year, both teams got byes, but it was one of the only years where one of the teams that got a bye didn't get a seed.
Because there was only 20 teams.
Right.
Yep.
That was 2011.
Yep.
So it's been since then.
Yep. You're on the right trail.
I believe 2014 was the year that it expanded.
Andrew, would you like to accept the answer of 2014, or would you like to select the year before 2014 for your answer?
I'll go with 2013.
Andrew, the clairvoyance of this man right here. 2013. Coulter, you did a great job getting him in the zone there.
And I just misremembered it, too. Southern Utah made their first playoff appearance in 2013, which was also the year that the playoffs expanded. I was thinking 2014, but that was the year that they were dead last in the country in total defense.
Hard to make the playoffs with that on your stat line. Yes, 2013 was the year. Excellent work there. How about this? Okay, the FCS playoffs began, first one ever, in 1978. How many teams were in the playoff that year, mirroring what we have in the FBS right now?
So FBS is 14 playoffs, so those 4.
You have followed the rabbit crumbs all the way to the rabbit, my friend. I don't know if that's a good analogy. I don't know if you like rabbits. I got a rabbit. I happen to like them. You got it. You got it, Andrew. Question number 2 is 4 teams. That's how it started. So went from 4 to 8, and then I think to 6 to either 12 or 16, 20, and 24. So this thing is built over time. Hey, FBS, get a clue, okay? Just get a clue.
Yeah, but 24 is too big.
No, 24 is just right. Here we go. It is too big for the FBS, actually. I do agree with that. Here we go. Here is the last question for you. By the way, congratulations, Andrew. You've gotten yourself the best wings in the city of Missoula from the Desperado. Here for a shirt. Montana has won the most Big Sky Conference championships of any team in the Big Sky Conference. How many conference championships have the Montana Grizzlies won?
Conference championships. And how long has the Big Sky Conference been a conference?
Since 1963.
All right.
Are you counting before they were in the Big Sky Conference as well?
No. Big Sky.
Okay.
Let's go with 14. I'll try 14. Let's see.
That's a great roll of the dice. The answer is 18, Andrew. 18 championships, conference championships for the Montana Grizzlies. 14 was right there. Andrew, you have done a great job loading on the loader and getting wings to the Desperado. Excellently done by you. Give your information to David. We'll get you set up with all that, all right?
All right. Thanks, you guys.
You got it.
Go Cats.
Oh, listen to this guy. The Go Cats. I love it. Getting them both. Coulter, you ready for this? Montana's won 18 conference championships. Montana State's number 2, 15 conference championships. The next closest is Eastern Washington with 7. The Montana and Montana State have 33 conference championships between them. And after Eastern Washington, there's like the next closest is like 3 or 4. I mean, it is.
Weber State
it's
5.
the Cats and the Grizz, man, and then you get a little bit of Eastern. But
well, I also have to remember that a great many of the conference championships have left the league.
Yeah, well, or weren't here in the league altogether. I mean,
right, but I'm just saying, like, it's not as if the Cats and the Cats and the Grizz have combined for 33 of the 57, and then you talk about Eastern having 7, Weber having 5. So there's 45 of the 57, but all the other ones are Boise State, Nevada, and Idaho.
Mm-hmm. That's right. But all the other ones still don't equal how many the Montana State have. Of course, they've been out of the conference too. But anyway, for what it's worth, Andrew got it done there. Hey, boys and girls. Tootell Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio, and it's time for our ESPN Roundtable. John Casper, he's the Senior Associate Commissioner of the Big Sky Conference. The Big Sky just handing out forming and announcing the inaugural Hall of Fame class, 14 members into the initial first ballot Hall of Famers, as it were, for the Big Sky Conference Hall of Fame, which has just been built. And also, Casper is down in Boise right now getting ready for year 2 of the Big Sky Conference basketball tournament. We talked to him about all of this and more here at the Roundtable right after this.
Hi there. It's Les Schwab Tires. Well, more like Les Schwab alignment and brakes, shocks, wheels, and tires. Now, some tire places don't offer all that. They only sell tires. And we're not sure how they sleep at night, because all those services affect things like steering and stopping. That's why we offer more tires to help keep you safe. Stop by or book an appointment at leschwab.com. Les Schwab Tires, doing the right thing since 1950.
On Russell, across from the fairground.
No matter how far you may go, there's always one just down the road. Down Pump, who pump it up, pump it up.
Town Pump has a great selection of wines. Right now, you can pick up a bottle of Barefoot Bubbly 750 milliliter, only $8.99, and Liberty Creek wines 1.5 liter, only $7.99. Stop by your local Town Pump and check out their wine selection for yourself. There's one right down the road.
You know what's at stake after a car accident? Not only will you have to deal with pushy insurance companies, auto repair shops, endless doctor's appointments, and dozens of unforeseen problems, but also your normal day-to-day life. I'm Coulter here with Catherine from the Advocates Injury Attorneys, and she knows how hard this can be.
That's right. And with all of that, it can seem tempting to take the quick settlement that the insurance company is offering. But I can tell you from experience that it is not going to be a fair amount. I see it all the time where someone has settled with the insurance company and months later realizes that they still have pain from the accident. And now they're having to pay those bills out of their pocket. I don't want that to happen to anyone.
So what should our listeners do, Catherine?
Give us a call and discuss your situation with an attorney. The call is free and we'll gladly talk about your situation with you. If you have a case that we can help with, you will owe us nothing out of pocket. We actually make the insurance company pay for us to help you.
There you have it. Call the Advocates at 406-640-4444 or go online, montanaadvocates.com. You deserve the Advocates on your side.
Local Missoulian Hokato Eastman is in urgent need of a new automated wheelchair. His current chair is very old and causing life-threatening pressure sores. Hokato's dream chair would allow him to be more independent and to stand for the first time in 20 years. Please help Hokato gain dignity, health, and quality of life. We hope that you sincerely consider giving money to this worthy and essential life-saving cause. Stop by the Hope Center or find his GoFundMe campaign at thehopecenter.us/wheelchair to donate. Let's get Hokato this chair, Montana.
The Hip Holiday Market is back, celebrating its 11th year. Support Lowell students and teachers while shopping for great holiday gifts from over 50 local artists at Lowell Elementary School. Saturday, December 14th from 10 till 4. Enjoy live music, tasty treats from their renowned bake sale, the Big Sky Grub Truck, prize drawings, a visit from Santa, and all kinds of holiday cheer. It's the 11th annual Hip Holiday Market on the 14th from 10 till 4 at Lowell Elementary, 1215 Phillips Street. The Hip Holiday Market is back.
ESPN Missoula.
Good afternoon, Ryan Tootell, Colter Nuanez. Here's some sports news for you. With college football stealing the spotlight in mid-December in Montana for the first time in years, the winter sports in prep at the high school level have just gotten underway this week, including girls and boys basketball and wrestling.
In Class AA boys hoops, reigning Montana Gatorade Player of the Year, Raleigh Wooster, will try to help Missoula Hellgate avenge last year's overtime loss to Bozeman on a buzzer beater in the state title game. And in Class AA girls, Helena High will try to replace two-time Gatorade Player of the Year Jamie Pickens, who's now with the Lady Grizz. The Bengals are trying for their fourth straight Class AA title. They are one of three schools to ever three-peat, but no AA program has ever won 4 in a row. Missoula Hellgate, an upstart team from a year ago with plenty of youth, should also be in the mix after finishing third a season ago.
In Class A girls hoops, Havre is gunning for its third straight title and fourth since 2014. Blue Ponies are led by Lady Grizz commit Kendall Keller. In Class B, Missoula Loyola lost in the state title game last year, but returns a talented roster. While in Class C, Manhattan Christian took down Arlee for the first time in 3 years as the two squads played in 3 consecutive state championship games.
In wrestling, the defending champions are Flathead in AA, Sydney in A, Colstrip in B, and Circle in Class C.
Take this job and shove. I ain't working here no more. A woman done left and took all the reason I was working for.
It's time for our ESPN Roundtable. Do it every Wednesday, 5:15. Be available again on Thursday. That's tomorrow, folks, on ESPN Radio. And you can also listen to it SkylineSportsMT.com as part of the Big Sky Breakdown podcast series presented by Paradise Falls. Tootell and Nuanez here with you, broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, Highway 83 in Sealy, and online at KurtzPolaris.com. If you would like to listen live to the show and it's easier for you on the web, we can get you covered there, 1029ESPN.com, to listen to the stream. Listen live whenever you want to. The stream is available thanks to Opportunity Bank, your local bank, your opportunity. Colter, Senior Associate Commissioner of the Big Sky Conference, John Casper, joined us for the ESPN Roundtable. He talked about the Hall of Fame, talked about the basketball tournament in Boise year 2, talked about the FCS playoffs a little bit as well. But, John, just in general, from Montana, went to high school in Great Falls at CMR. He'll be very clear about that, which high school he went to. But also has been with the conference for 16 years now. Doug Fullerton into Andrea Williams, and now with Tom Wistersill. So he's seen 3 different commissioners and has been around the conference and working in administrative positions for a long time. A journalist before that, going out of the journalism world and into the sports admin side of things. But a guy who's seen a lot, who's probably, if I'm right here, the most veteran conference administrator that there is. So been there longer than anybody else. Now that Ron Lockery has moved on. So this is he's a guy who knows a lot, who's seen a lot, and I think is excited about the day and the release particularly. That's why we're doing this now of this Hall of Fame.
And some highlights from both Montana State, certainly. Robin Selvig, Shannon Cate, Dave Dickinson, probably 3 of the biggest no-brainers and certainly some of the headliners of the class. But you got to also give credit to Jan Sennerud. I mean, Jan Sennerud is the only kicker in the NFL Hall from Montana State. I mean, he's in one of the pro sports football Hall of Fame.
That's pretty impressive.
Impossible to top. So you got good athletes on both sides of this thing, and then from a variety of other Big Sky schools too. Probably the one guy that we didn't really ask Sean about that deserves highlighting is Lopez Lebong. I mean, he was a multiple-time Olympian from NAU, and he's carried his country's flag at the Olympics. The guy, I mean, where he's from, he is like Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
He is as good as it gets, and he has had a tremendous pro running career that's still going on, and he was absolutely ridiculous to watch in college, and he continues to compete on the world stage.
ESPN Roundtables presented by Paradise Fells. Please enjoy. Table this week, the Senior Associate Commissioner of the Big Sky Conference, John Casper. John is in Boise, Idaho right now, getting ready for the year 2 of the Big Sky Conference basketball tournament in Boise. John, thanks so much for taking some time out and being with us. How are you?
I'm great.
Well, we're happy to have you. You've been on before, and
he's the first repeat guest on the ESPN Roundtable.
I mean, we've had some heavy hitters now, and so to be the second guy through, or your second time through, that's pretty good there, John Casper. That's impressive.
Well, that's a great honor. I love talking to you guys. I could talk to you guys for hours.
Well, we got the time, so let's get into it. Hey, there's a couple of things that we wanted to get to specifically, and there's good reason for you to be on a second time. And let's start with this. Just announced, the Big Sky Conference has inducted its inaugural Hall of Fame class. You created a Hall of Fame and now have inducted 14 former athletes and coaches into this Hall of Fame class. When did this sort of idea get started that, hey, this conference should have a Hall of Fame?
Well, I think it's probably been floating around for several years. Me being with the league for 16 years, it was something I was really interested in doing and kind of spearheading. And when Tom Wister still came on as our commissioner, it was one of his priorities to get it done. So we put together a committee and started having conference calls back in September, get this thing rolling. And we still have a lot of work to do. Now we have the prep ceremony, which we'll have here in Boise. But, being a league for 57 years, it was long overdue for us to have this. Another thing is we moved into a new, really nice office building in Farmington, Utah, and we have a couple of walls that we are going to use to honor our Hall of Fame in there. So it all works out well. Really excited about the ceremony that we're planning in March, and we're really excited to have this class announced and to see the names, that are on the list really makes you appreciate, I think, just how great our league has been over the years.
Starting a Hall of Fame is an interesting task. I'm on the board of directors for the Montana Football Hall of Fame, and it's sort of crazy, first of all, when you think about great lineage of football in the state of Montana and how there wasn't such a thing. And so then when we're going through, we wanted to make the event that we hold each year be something that's entertaining that people want to go to. But you can't just go and induct 175 guys that all deserve to be in the Hall of Fame, because you want the event to be fun and everybody to get to go up there and talk.
Exactly.
But it's interesting, though, right? Because when you don't have something, and you have something like the Big Sky Conference that's 57 years of history, you're talking about outstanding athletes. And so it seems as if there's challenges, but also makes it a little bit easier as far as the inaugural class. If you look at some of the people that are going into this inaugural class, Dave Dickinson, Shannon Kate, Robin Silvick, those are names familiar to Montana, but then guys like Damian Lillard. So talk about just the balance of the two things, because obviously everybody that's going in are kind of the home runs, the absolute no-brainers, but also you want to make the event and the induction special. So how do you balance those two factors?
Yeah, that's a great question, something we talked about, because when we do the ceremony, we don't want this to last 4 hours.
Right.
We want it to be fast. We want it to be fun for everybody. In the future, we're only going to put a maximum of 8 in the Hall of Fame. But we really felt like with this first year, we needed to expand that class. So we changed some of the rules, but we still limited it to, one. You can only get 1 per category. So, you may, Montana wonder, well, man, Larry Krasowiak deserves to go in. Well, they decided to put Dave Dickinson forward the first year, but next year, Larry will probably be on the ballot. So, there's obviously some great people that are not going in this first year, and I hope people don't focus on those things, but focus on the 14 that are going in and knowing this is just the first year, and we're going to have have this going now every year. So, and we do want the program fast and exciting and not drag on for 4 hours. So we tried to balance that the best we could, and I think 14 is a pretty good number for this first class.
Who went about nominating people? How do people get nominated? Do you guys have like a selection committee? How is the voting
So we
process?
have a selection committee. We picked a representative from every institution, and a lot of those ended up being like former sports information directors or former administrators. And then we went back to the schools and told them the schools needed to nominate, and then our nominating committee went through those who were nominated and ultimately did a vote. We did a first vote where we selected the first three, one for each category, and then went back and Denise Thompson from our staff had done the Hall of Fame at Northern Arizona, and we had looked at a bunch of different conferences, how they do their conferences, how they do their Hall of Fame, how they vote. So we kind of took different things from different conferences and ultimately decided what we decided. So we had conference calls with the committee to discuss the nominees or questions they had, and then ultimately they did voted through email and came up with our class of 14.
John Casper joining us. He's the Senior Associate Commissioner of the Big Sky Conference. And we won't go through all 14 of these folks, but for the people who are in Montana where we're listening and watching, let's go through the folks that are from Montana. By the way, Jared Allen and Damian Lillard on the list, as you mentioned earlier, Claude. That's pretty good. I don't know how Dame really made it, honestly, in the first one. That's pretty bold. But Shannon Twain, formerly Shannon Kate, is on the list. Dave Dickinson, obviously Montana quarterback, is there. Robin Selvig, as the women's basketball coach for 38 years on this list. Also, Jan Stenerud, Montana State football, obviously outstanding kicker, Hall of Fame kicker in the NFL.
He's the only Hall of Fame kicker.
And also an outstanding skier. Was he an Olympic skier?
He was a standout skier.
He was an All-American.
All-American skier. Okay.
He actually went to Montana State.
He came to Montana State.
Yeah.
It's a different day when your best special teams football player is also your ace ski team guy. Those two don't mix anymore, right, Casper? You're going skiing. You're kicked off the football.
No, I mean, you think about how Jeremy Bloom was an Olympic skier and played in the NFL. So there's another football skier guy, but it doesn't happen very, very often.
And by the way, one more, Ellie Rudy from Montana State track and field from 04 to 08. Outstanding. I mean, best of all time, perhaps, at MSU.
Yeah, 2 national championships, 8 Big Sky championships. Yeah.
So there's the list of five Montana and Montana State, either most of them athletes, but one coach in there as well that have made this list. When you look at this list and that group in particular, what kind of stands out to you, John? Because you've been around, like you said. I mean, you've been in this conference 16 years. You're from Montana, originally went to Great Falls. So when you look at this, what kind of jumps out to you?
Well, first of all, I went to CMR, not Great Falls. Let's just get that out of the way.
From Great Falls, yes. The mighty CMR, the mighty CM Russell.
So, when we did our 50th year anniversary a few years ago, Dave was the number one male athlete. Shannon was the number one female athlete. So obviously, made a lot of sense for them to be on the first ballot. I'm fortunate that I saw the front row to Dave's career from the time I was in high school. And so I have a tremendous amount of respect for him, obviously, and what he did for CMR and for the University of Montana and what he's done in the CFL. I remember Shannon, just dominating women's basketball and, going to USC and going toe-to-toe with Lisa Leslie despite having a separated shoulder. All-American basketball player. What Robin did for women's basketball, not only in Montana, but, really in the West, phenomenal. 165 wins, how many Big Sky titles, NCAA tournament wins, the student athletes he produced, obviously no brainer. Jan Stenerud, we have an NFL Hall of Famer going into our Hall of Fame. when I spoke to him and told him, about 10 days ago, he couldn't have been nicer and could have been more excited about this honor. And he played back when the league first really started. And Ellie Rudy, a girl student athlete who won 8 pole vault titles in our league, and she just lives a normal life in Alaska now, and she's really excited. And
nobody lives a normal life in Alaska, John. I mean, that's not happening.
She's not a pro athlete. She's in the medical field, and so she's already booked her tickets. So she'll be in Boise. So 5 really outstanding student athletes and coaches right there, and I could say, man, Shannon Butler, he's going to go in probably next year. A great national championship runner from Eureka, Montana, who went to Montana State. So, and that's what excites me. Like, man, this is the first year, but we have a gold medalist in Dan O'Brien not going in the first year, who went to the University of Idaho. So, we've got some depth to it. It's not. So I'm excited not only this year to kick it off, but what the future holds for the others that are going in the Hall of Fame. So, just really exciting. But obviously, me being from Great Falls and growing up in Montana, I think it's awesome that you have a kid from Great Falls, a kid from Billings, and a guy from Outlook, Montana, who rose to be one of the top women's college basketball coaches in history, going into this Hall of Fame.
If I'm not mistaken, John Freeze, who played quarterback in Idaho, is actually from Missoula as well, right?
He was born in Missoula. Rosenbaum may have been.
Tim Rosenbaum, yep. He went to high school early on in Missoula, and then ended up moving to Pullman, where he finished his high school career. Dad was coaching there. Yep.
John Elway obviously lived in Missoula when he was a young kid.
No doubt. Well, I think the Jan Stenerud story is one that's worth telling for people that don't know it, because, like you mentioned, John, he started his career at Montana State as a skier. And those fields that are still in front of the dorms there at Montana State that still serve as the soccer fields, he was out there playing soccer one day, and he saw the football guys kicking, and they started razzing him and said, "Hey, soccer boy, why don't you come over here and see if you can kick a field goal?" And he walks over there, and he pipes a 55-yard field goal while the basketball coach, Roger Kraft, is walking by. So the basketball coach goes to Jim Sweeney right away and says, this is in 1962, 63, so there's no one kicking 50-plus yard field goals.
Right.
And so Roger Kraft runs over to Jim Sweeney and says, "Hey, there's a kid that can kick half the length of the field. go get him." And Stenerud never wavered. He hit a 59-yard field goal against the Grizzlies, which I think stood as the Big Sky Conference's all-time record longest field goal. It might actually still be.
I think it was the NCAA record at the time.
Right. And so then he goes on and he's in Super Bowl with the Kansas City Chiefs. What a crazy story, right?
Yeah,
the guy just straight walks on the soccer field, and then 15 years later, he's an NFL Hall of Fame.
Yeah, and a great NFL Hall of Fame. When he finished, I think he was like the leader in points by a kicker, leaders in field goals made by a kicker. Adam Vinatieri is obviously going to go in the Hall of Fame someday now, as a kicker. But John will be that first true kicker to ever go in the Hall of Fame.
John Casper joining us. He's the Senior Associate Commissioner of the Big Sky Conference. And, John, let's talk a little bit about what you're doing right now. You're in Boise, Idaho, and having some meetings and that sort of thing to get ready for year 2 of the Big Sky Conference basketball tournament that was in Boise last year. Thought it was great. The venue was great there in Boise last year, but obviously the first year you want to learn some things and maybe switch some stuff up. So what are you doing now, and what do you think are some of the things that have been sort of reviewed as you go into year 2 of this?
Lots of things have been reviewed, and we just want to continue to grow the tournament. So there were some things in the arena like a stat board. So we're trying to work on some things with the arena, how we can improve our fan fest, but ultimately it's always about how we get more people engaged in the Boise community and in our community to get to the arena. So we really liked what we did the first year, and we think Boise is a great location for us. We just met with the Boise Convention and Visitors Bureau, about some different things and what we can do moving forward. So we've just hit some key people this trip. Not had like our big meetings, but we had to meet with the Boise Pacific group this morning to get some permits and stuff for our fan fest to get that all approved. So.
What are you guys' main goals for year 2?
more people in the seats. That's always going to be our goal. And I think adding this Hall of Fame too is a big piece to it for us, to add another important event on a Saturday in Boise.
So the banquet will be in association with the Big Sky Tournament. The Hall of Fame banquet will?
Yeah, we're going to do it like a Saturday morning type event leading up to our basketball championship game at the Boise Center, which is right next door to the arena in the Grove area. And so we're looking at doing like a 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. type event, or I say that right, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. type event, and then having our fan fest all afternoon, pep rallies, seating contest, potentially a live band playing Saturday afternoon, and then having our basketball championship that night. And we would also introduce all of our Hall of Fame inductees at halftime. So that's going to be great. But ultimately, go back to goals, and it's all about just finding ways to get more and more people, whether it's engaging with the local schools. And the student-athlete experience is always important to us. So we think they had a great time the first year. And obviously some of that depends when the student-athlete wins the championship. They have a great student-athlete experience. If they're, here for a day and lose out in their first game, then, it's probably not the best. But we want to make it as good a time for them as possible, the time that they're in Boise.
John, obviously you're focusing on that since you're in Boise, working on that now, and I have been working very hard on this Hall of Fame class and group that's now out, but also 3 of the 8 teams that are left in the FCS playoffs are Big Sky Conference teams. I think that's got to be a feather in the cap to the conference in general, and I know you're keeping a very close eye on what's going on there, but from a conference perspective, when you look at the football side of things where we stand right now in this quarterfinal, kind of what's the general feel and feedback and what you're seeing there?
Oh, we're really excited to have 3 teams in the final 8. Would have been awesome to get that 4th team. Unfortunately, Sacramento State just didn't play well in that first half, and it was the first time ever in the playoffs. But so the Weber Montana game is going to be exciting on ESPN2 in Montana State. I believe this would be the first time, if they win, that they'll be in the semifinals since 1984. So we're excited about that. The football season we've had, obviously there's 2 teams out there in NDSU and James Madison that have been, 1-2 all season long. But hey, let's go play them next week. Let's see what we can do if we get Montana State out to NDSU and either Weber, Montana, JMU, or Northern Iowa, or if there's upsets, good for us. So.
From an exposure standpoint, the fact that you can have games on national television and a chance for more too, especially considering that the Big Sky is guaranteed to have at least 1 team in the semifinals and maybe as many as 2. So what do you think of just the ability for the Big Sky to be on the brightest stage in college football these next couple of weeks?
Yeah, absolutely. That Friday night game on ESPN usually draws the highest rating of the year. It's a coveted spot. So, and we're putting 3 games on Friday, which I honestly didn't know about that was going to happen. So Weber, Montana playing on ESPN2. Yes, it's 8 o'clock at night. Yes, it's December. Yes, it's going to be cold. But it's the only football game that'll be on in the country, at that time. So there's potential for a lot of eyeballs to see Montana and Weber State playing on Friday night, which is great. It's awesome.
John, last thing that we just kind of wanted to touch on with you here a little bit, but you've been with the Big Sky Conference now for 16 years. You're now a senior associate commissioner. You've worked with and alongside 3 different commissioners now, but Tom Wister still comes in just over a year ago now and has been there, and he's been really good to us. And I think it takes a while to sort of get yourself acquainted with all the things that are going on and maybe some of the visions that you start to have about what the conference can be and the future of it. You already touched on, obviously, the Hall of Fame was a big deal to him, which is why that is now a reality at this point in time. But what's it been like with Commissioner Wister still there and some of the things that he's tried to implement and do and take the direction of the conference as a whole?
He's awesome. He's a great leader. He's got a lot of great ideas, and we're just starting to put some of those into motion. He got us into our new office desperately needed. We got some other things that are kind of exciting. I'm coming down the road. One thing I'm particularly excited about when we start the new year, it's not a huge deal, but it's just fun. They're fun things, fun ideas. But ultimately, we want student-athlete experience to be great. He's really into that. He's gone around to the schools, and he's not just meeting with administrators and presidents. He's meeting with student-athletes. He's going out to their practices and, learning how to fast pitch and learning how to throw a discus. He's fun like that. He's a really great guy to work for. So I really like where we're headed. Obviously, there's always challenges with, finances, and we want to get better in football. We want to get better in men's basketball. Is a priority. It's been a priority for a long time, but we need to crack that nut and start winning games in the NCAA tournament.
Is now a good time also to announce Tootell Nuanez doing play-by-play for the Big Sky Conference at the conference tournament? I heard that was a decision that was made at some very high level, right?
I haven't heard that, guys. Sorry.
Okay, I'll get you the email. Okay, I'll let you know. That's fine.
Fantastic.
Hey, John, man, we appreciate always you being on with us. We appreciate the time and the insight. Congratulations. I know people probably don't appreciate, well, what? You put an email out with 14 names on it. What's the big deal? Well, it's a lot of work to go through and actually put that together and prepare not just the list, but also all the coordinating events and things that go with it. So congratulations on that, and we'll look forward to Boise this year as well and the rest of this football season.
Well, thank you, and I'll actually be in Bozeman on Friday night, so looking forward to getting back to Montana and hopefully seeing the Bobcats win that game. Thanks, guys.
You bet. Thank you, John Casper. John Casper, our ESPN Roundtable. You can hear that again tomorrow at noon on ESPN Radio, and then it'll be available for you at SkylineSportsMT.com as part of the Big Sky Breakdown podcast series. Built to the ESPN Roundtable, it is presented by Paradise Falls. Paradise Falls on the south end of Missoula, on the north end of your world if you're coming from the Bitterroot, but a nice intersection there at Brooks and Reserve Street. ESPN 3 capabilities, so all the FCS playoff games, even those that are not on ESPN platform television, like the Montana State Austin P game Friday night, well, you can still get it there, and obviously any game anyway, so you can check out all the Grizz games, all the Cat games, basketball, football. It's there at Paradise Falls, not to mention the great late happy hour, among other things.
Paradise Falls was among, if not the first place in Missoula that was in on ESPN 3. They figured the ESPN 3 out. I think people have kind of figured it out now. But this was like a disaster. When it first came out, people were like, how do I get this thing? Some of the cable providers in Montana weren't offering it yet. And so it was like, but have no fear. The point is that Paradise Falls has ESPN 3. So if you can't figure it out, or you don't want to figure it out, and you want to watch the Cat game on Friday night, or you want to watch a variety of great football games throughout the weekend, Paradise Falls got you covered. They also, in fact, have ESPN 2 and ESPN 1 as well. So you can watch the Grizz game, the Bobcat game, all the games all at the same time down there on Friday night. And because the Grizz game's an 8 o'clock kickoff, you can hit that late happy hour. It starts at 9 o'clock, half-price appetizers, $3 beers, half-price mixed drinks. Sounds like a pretty good spot to go for the Grizz game on Friday night, so go hit them up. 3621 Brook Street in Missoula, Paradise Falls, Missoula's coolest hotspot.
Boys and girls, if you have children, here's my recommendation to you. Baseball.
Gifts from Florence Coffee Company are as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1, buy a $20 gift card and receive one $5 gift card free. 2, pick up a gift bag complete with mug, coffee, and a $10 gift card, all for only $25. 3, choose from a selection of winter travel mugs. 5% of all gift card sales go to the Montana Food. Go to any Florence Coffee location or go to FlorenceCoffeeCo.com.
Christmas gift, think spicy. 'Tis the season for seasoning with gift packs from Alpine Touch. 4-spice pack includes 4 Big Mountain flavors for just $19.99. Go to AlpineTouch.com right now for gifts sure to keep mouths watering year-round. If you plug in the code ESPN at checkout, you'll get a free bag of Alpine Touch sunflower seeds. From gift packs to gift cards to the Grand Slam package, Alpine Touch makes the perfect gift for anyone on your list. Go to AlpineTouch.com right now to order. Alpine Touch, Montana's special spice.
Hey, Colter Nuanez from Tootell Nuanez. Need a great place for a Christmas gift. I got a spot for you. Aspen Sound in Missoula. They got all the hookups for everything you could possibly need for your vehicles. What are some of the sweet things you got going on down there, Tom?
Thanks, Coulter. Apple CarPlay and Android Auto have sure been popular this year for safety and convenience. You can do text messaging, maps, pretty much everything you need, and phone calls, music, everything right from the touch of your radio. We also have remote car starters, as you know, and window tint. Lots of goodies at a great price. Come on down and see us.
Feel the music at Aspen Sound.
RJ Reagan opened up all of you. Those guys continue to live through our family. Those who buy our whether you're traveling Yellowstone diving, jump into Jayco and experience that you. Only where a handshake means.
Registration for Nuanez basketball is open now through December 18th. Nuanez basketball gives middle school boys and girls an opportunity to compete on the basketball court in an environment that is fun and promotes good sportsmanship. It is a free program that is supported through the fundraising efforts of the Nuanez Club of Missoula. Visit MissoulaKiwanis.com for info and to register.
Last May, Ten Spoon Winery partnered with the Historical Museum with Hello to Old Missoula, Missoula's History Through Art, an event where attendees voted on their favorite piece of art, which would become the next Ten Spoon wine label. Votes are counted, and Megan Odell's piece depicting the 1990s Roxy Theater fire was the winner. Now you can drink wine for history, as Ten Spoon is dedicating a portion from every bottle of Roxy Fire wine sold to the Historical Museum. Find it now at local retailers or call 406-549-8703.
Tootell on 102.9 ESPN Radio for Missoula.
Basketball, no. Football, definitely not. Hockey, getting closer. But what you really want is a baseball player. It's Tootell and Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio, broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, Highway 83 in Sealy, online at kurtzpolaris.com. You can find us everywhere, even on the podcast. Tootell and Nuanez podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts. If you miss anything in the show, just listen to it there, or it's just easier for you to listen to the whole thing there all the time. All the platforms, Tootell and Nuanez, just search it, rate it, review it, subscribe to it. Great. Podcast available thanks to the Wingate by Wyndham Hotel. Also, coming out after the show, FCS Speculators, a betting podcast, going to be available. So we got a couple of great guests, Coulter and I, talking about the 4 remaining games in this quarterfinals against the spread. So go check that out and give that a listen if that interests you. That'll be fun. At 102.9 ESPN on Instagram and on Twitter. Well, the New York Yankees are doing what New York Yankees do, trying to buy it. Garrett Cole, outstanding pitcher.
So awesome that it hasn't worked in any plus.
That's correct. I mean, I'm not sure it ever worked before anyways. I mean, they bought and they got some homegrown. Got to get some homegrown.
Mm-hmm.
Anyhow, Garrett Cole, outstanding pitcher for the formerly for the Houston Astros. I think he was with Pittsburgh before that. He has signed a 9-year, $324 million deal.
$36+ million per year.
Just so we know, this is a starting pitcher, people. This is an every 5th day guy. Bryce Harper got $333 for 13 years, same amount basically,
and plays 150 games, not 32.
Coming out of the 2019 season, his stats in the 2019 season. Are you ready for this, Coulter? This contract would pay him, based on those numbers, $1.09 million, just over $1 million per start. You go to work, here you go, $1 million.
That's what I'm saying. The way the pitching rotations work these days, you make every start that you are scheduled to make throughout a season. You do not miss a start. You're going to start 33 games. That's all.
$1.8 million per win, $110,000 per strikeout. How would you like that?
I did not realize he struck out 326 guys last year. That's a historic number. That's an outstanding number.
You know what's a more outstanding number?
$324 million.
Getting six figures for every one of them.
$1 million a strikeout.
No, 110,000.
No, I know. I'm just saying, like it's crazy that he got $324 million and had 326 strikeouts.
Here's what I'm not. He's 29, I think. Garrett Cole. So he's not old by any stretch, but a 9-year deal for a starting pitcher. I mean, he's still going to be out there just throwing cheddar when you're 36, 37 years old. Heaven forbid when you're 39. You know. Steven Strasburg,
35th most strikeouts in a single season. I thought that would actually.
Steven Strasburg also re-signing with the Nationals, World Series winning Washington Nationals, 7-year, $245 million deal. And I love this. See, I'd be all in on this. You know how Bobby Bonilla's collecting like $1.5 million every July from the Mets still? Deferred money, people. Get the deferred money in your contract. Steven Strasburg deferred $80 million to be paid out between 2028 and 2030. So this is still within the life of the contract. Actually, I guess it's just after. I guess the contract ends probably in 2026. So just a couple years after. But he's going to get, in 3 years, $80 million, in all likelihood, golfing in the Mediterranean, probably. I'm there and it's waiting for me at the other end of this thing, no matter what happens. That's a good thing. You know what I mean? I don't know. People want to have it in hand so they can throw it in the stock market and all that kind of thing. I don't know. Let me be contractually obligated to receive $80 million.
Exactly. If you got it, you can lose it.
That's
if you're going to get guaranteed to get paid, you're going to guarantee you're going to pay me $1 million a year for the next 35 years. That means I'm never going to not be a millionaire, at least for one day a year.
Yeah. Here's the thing is you can win the lottery. You heard about that?
Oh, totally. Most people that win the lottery become massively depressed and broke.
Here's the thing I want to know. Okay, enough with the Powerball thing and the $500 million, whatever. You can go win a couple of $1 million. That's all well and good. You know which one I want to win? The $500 a week for life. Or the $2,000 a month, or what? I guess the same thing. But you understand what I'm saying? I guess I'd rather have $2 million than $500 a week. But if it was I think you could get $2,500 a week. Let's go. What more do you need? I'm a simple man. I got free cars. Okay, but I'm just saying, if you just know that it's there, there's I don't have to worry about now. Okay, well, I just bought a house. There goes a quarter of my $2 million. There goes another quarter to, Uncle Sam, if not more. That's great. Nobody should be complaining about winning $2 million, but I'd just rather have the consistent deal. You know what I mean? You know what I'd rather be able to do? Throw 99 with a wicked slider. Let me get out there. I would endure some arm soreness for the remainder of my days to, in return, collect $300 million or so over the course of my professional life.
Are you kidding me? I would do anything. You want to run me over with your car? I will do it.
Well, yeah, not my car. My car would get high-centered on you.
What wouldn't you do for $324 million?
Oh, a lot. There's a lot of stuff.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot that I would. Dude, you got to think you could change the lives of every person you know.
Oh, yeah, you sure could, but it's unclear it's for the better, as you already said.
True.
I'm very wary of this, man. As somebody who doesn't play the lottery, it's pretty unlikely I'll win the lottery. But, there's a certain element of purpose that just goes away if all of a sudden you're just good.
Oh, absolutely.
And listen, you and I know each other well enough to look each other square in the eyes and go, if you never had to work again a day in your life, you would be in some trouble. And I would be in some big time trouble.
Yeah. Sure.
You gotta
here's the thing.
You gotta have that thing anchored down.
If I had that sort of money, though, I would still work. I would still do this job all the time. I just wouldn't be so stressed out about it.
Yeah, I don't know
how fun it would be to have our job when you don't have to worry about money.
But here's I don't know, man. It would be fun. But also, I think that I'd just be like, I don't know, man. I'm going to take PJ. I mean, I think I'd want to do this job about 6 months a year. And I don't know if that would sustain the gig.
If we had $324 million, though, we could buy all the equipment that would make it possible so we could take the PJ and do that thing.
Do whatever, everything, everywhere.
Like right now, we could just be like camping out for the Rage Against the Machine show.
Breaking down.
Ready to go.
Now, is that happening? Is that real?
Are we going?
No. The show itself.
In Albuquerque or in New
Las
Mexico?
Cruces.
Las Cruces? I don't know. Let's find out.
I mean, there was like one sort of quasi-confirmed Instagram post about this, and I still haven't really confirmed that this is a true thing. So if it is happening, that would be a nice way to use half of my $324 million to go see the one bucket list band that I haven't got.
Speaking of losing money, Minnesota Crookston and St. Cloud State both dropped football yesterday. People might say, well, who cares?
St. Cloud.
Well, St. Cloud State has been perennially good at a lot of different sports.
Yes.
St. Cloud State had 18,000 students as of 8 years ago, but they're in a similar enrollment crisis to Montana. They're down to 10,000 students, so it's not quite as bad as Montana has gone through, but they've still lost a significant amount, yet they're still bigger than Montana. Think of that. But Minnesota Crookston is also a 10,000 plus student school. So these are Division II schools, but not tiny. They're not 2,000, 3,000 person schools. So it's significant. I don't know what sort of impact that's going to have, but I do know that there's been all sorts of guys from those programs that still want to keep playing, that are flooding the transfer portal.
Yeah.
And you never know, like the way these guys develop and stuff. Guys that are good all-conference type players in that Northern Intercollegiate Sun League or whatever, the one that they're in. I mean, those guys could make rosters in the Big Sky. So we'll see. But anytime there's drops like that, there's always movement across rosters.
Want to remind everybody, by the way, we're here today. We're here tomorrow. Friday, Bozeman, Montana, the Rockin' R Bar. We're going to be there doing the show, Tootell and Nuanez from Bozeman ahead of the Montana State Austin P game. And then, of course, the Grizzly Weber State game at 8 that evening from Ogden. So we're looking forward to being with everybody over in Bozeman, being at the Rockin' R Bar. Come on down, hang out with us. If you're watching us there in Bozeman, come swing by and say hello. Certainly be happy to see you down there. Boys and girls, have a great evening. See you tomorrow.
Have you been in an accident and have no idea what to do? I'm here with Catherine from the Advocates Injury Attorneys.
Unfortunately, people are injured in accidents every day, and dealing with the insurance company can add even more pain to an already bad situation. That is where hiring the advocates can help. Let us guide you through the process and take on the hassles for you so you can just focus on
If you've been injured in an accident, give the Advocates a call, 406-640-4444, or online at montanaadvocates.com. The Advocates are on.
This is Mike Nugent with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. Berkshire Hathaway provides Western Montana with full-time real estate professionals for you whenever you need us. Our reputation as the state's most knowledgeable and available real estate group has helped build unmatched trust in the Garden City and statewide. If you have been thinking of making a real estate move in the short or long term, give me a call. No pressure, no expectations. Just professional opinions and service at whatever pace you are comfortable. Give me, Mike Nugent, a call today, 531-1802. And remember, every question is good to ask.
In Western Montana, we know shopping local matters. And you may think you'd pay more for the quality and customer service that comes with it, but not at Selway Armory. Selway Armory is locally owned with knowledgeable specialists that can answer your questions. In addition to the expertise, though, Selway Armory also has a bigger selection and lower prices than the box store. When you're in the market for firearms and accessories, save money with the experts at Selway Armory. Selway Armory, 2825 Stockyard Road, Unit 6, and online at selwayarmory.com.
Not all gift cards are created equal. The Montana Club gift card comes with more handcrafted breakfast, lunch, and dinner favorites than any other local card. Home-style breakfasts, perfectly grilled Angus steaks, piled high sandwiches, expertly mixed cocktails, local craft beers, and much, much more. This year, give Montana made. Buy in-store or at montanaclub.com. Give $100 in gift cards and get a $10 gift card free. It's easy. Happy holidays from everyone at your Montana Club.
Thank you for making Polaris America's best-selling off-road brand. During the Polaris Great American Thank You event, financing is as low as 3.99% and rebates go as high as $3,500. Live life wide open in a high-performance RZR. Tackle everything from mountains to mud holes, the legendary Sportsman ATV. Get more done with a hardworking Ranger or elevate your adventure in a versatile Polaris General. Now is the time to get the season's best deals